What's shaking, cats and kittens? Rob Lee here for this month's presenting sponsor, Night Owl Gallery. Night Owl Gallery is an intimate, artist-run exhibition space showcasing the original paintings and fine art prints of Beth Ann Wilson. Also, it features curated goods from local artists and craftsmen. You'll be sure to find one-of-a-kind gifts, handcrafted jewelry, home decor items, along with a few vintage treasures. Located in the rear of 248 South Conklin Street in Highlandtown, across from Sally O's, Night Owl Gallery is a unique space that brings together Wilson's love of the arts, community, and culture. Additionally, Night Owl Gallery hosts an array of arts and crafts workshops throughout the year and participates in community events, many of which are free and open to the public. So in this ever-changing world, safety is their priority. So feel free to join them and hit them up online at www.nightowl.gallery. Tell them Rob Lee sent you. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art on MTR Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Lee, and today's guest is the owner, designer, flower liaison, Ellen Dozens. Ellen Frost, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. It's always great to link and be able to talk to a local business that you've done stuff with or bought stuff from, and kind of like, I've seen your place. I've seen it a few times, and it's good to be able to attach a face to what I'm getting from you ultimately.
Awesome.
So let's get that rundown. So Local Color Flowers is a Baltimore-based floral design business.
Yes, we started in 2008. So we are in our 14th year in business, and we have had sort of lots of versions of Loco Flow since the beginning. But the things that have stayed the same and stayed true to our vision and our mission is to provide locally sourced flowers to the folks in Baltimore. And while that may not sound like a big deal, and certainly now more and more people are sourcing locally, but when we started in 2008, we were the only florist in the state of Maryland that were sourcing 100% local flowers.
Oh, wow.
And so most people don't know or don't think about necessarily where their flowers come from. You know, you go to Trader Joe's, you go to Whole Foods, you see flowers on display, you grab a bunch to throw in your cart on the way, to grocery shopping. Most people don't think, like, where did these flowers come from? Who grew them? How were they grown? How did they get here to this store?
Sure.
And so for us, the fact that 80% of the flowers sold in the United States come from outside of the United States really impacted us on a very local level. So I knew, and I worked on a lot of farms, and I knew flower farmers, and it made no sense to me that the majority of the flowers that people were buying in Baltimore, in Maryland, in the United States were being flown on airplanes 5, 6, 10,000 miles to get to the Mount Washington Whole Foods. Wow. Like, it made no sense to me, because I knew flower farmers in our community who were like, look, I grow really great flowers and I don't have enough customers, and I don't really know how to connect my product to the end consumer the way a gigantic farm in Colombia or Ecuador does.
Right.
And so in the beginning, we really just saw our business as a way to be a bridge between farmers who had flowers locally, and in the beginning, people who were getting married and wanted to have local flowers at their weddings. Because at that time, there was no mechanism for those clients to get to those farmers. And so we thought we could be a bridge between these two groups. And that's really how it started.
So it started from there. And I would imagine I kind of undersold you a little bit, I think, when I said owner, designer, farmer liaison. I think it may be more deeper than that. So, stepping back, describe what your role is in there, because I always give that 10,000 foot view, but I think the guests can better describe what they do. And ultimately you covered what local color does, but speak on what you do there specifically.
Yeah. I am the founder of the company. I started it with two friends who quickly left the company, like within the first year. And then I ran the business by myself for a few years. And then my husband joined as a partner in 2012. And so as the owner and entrepreneur, in the beginning, all the roles, when anybody starts a business, all the roles are yours. You are the person who drives to the farm and picks up the flowers. You're the person who comes back and designs the flowers. You're the person who delivers the flowers. You're the person who sends the invoice, and you're the person, you're everything.
Yeah. One-stop shopping.
That was for many years. That was how it worked. And it wasn't really until 2012 when we bought the building that we are currently in, and we will be in for the rest of our lives, that things sort of changed. And we hired a staff, and we started diversifying the kind of things that we were doing, to include things like retail, floral design classes, special events, community events. And so at that time, my role sort of changed from being the person who did it all to maybe the person who coordinated it all and did some of the things. Yeah. And so I'm probably not. So I do still design, certainly for weddings. I don't design as much for our weekday orders anymore. We have designers that do a lot of the weekday orders. I still teach all of the floral design classes that we have in the shop. Yeah. I'm work at all of our retail hours. I say all of our retail hours. We're open for 8 hours a week. So, I mean, it's not like a ton of retail hours. But then I do all of the purchasing. So I am the person who works with, we work with about 30 different flower farmers in the state of Maryland and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Virginia. We have one DC grower right now too. So I'm the person who does all of the purchasing from the farmers, and then all of the sort of getting the flowers. So either going to the farms and picking stuff up, or being available when the farmers come to deliver. I no longer have to do bookkeeping. My husband does the bookkeeping. He does all of the computer stuff too, so I don't have to do that. So I have like a pretty perfect job. Like, it's pretty amazing.
It's good to be at that stage where you know each one of the elements enough that it's like, all right, let me delegate here. Let me delegate there. Yeah.
So, delegating is like magic. It's absolutely. Like, it just really can make your, and it's hard as, I think for a lot of people, when you start out as a solopreneur and you're the person doing everything, that some personality types are the type that want to keep all of that control, as they grow, and growing is difficult. For me, I didn't really have that problem. I was happy to delegate. I was happy to build a team that was skilled and trustworthy and passionate about local flowers. And, I was happy to let them play a role too. And so it has been great to be able to pass some of that along to other folks.
So, and in that kind of solopreneur space and transitioning into having that team and working from that standpoint, was there like an area or a few areas within what your normal responsibilities were that you were like, I'm very passionate about that. I want that to be my thing. And I think these are other areas that I can maybe train someone up and have them do that might be more efficient, or it might be a great learning opportunity. How do you, one, identify the pieces of it that you're really passionate about and you want to do? And how do you find the ones that you're like, all right, I'm not as efficient in that? How do you determine those two?
I think that's a great question. And I think it can be challenging because there's so many tasks. There's so many things. For me, I started the business not because I was like super passionate about design necessarily. I liked the idea of floral design. I thought it was a lot of fun. I didn't think, and I still don't think, that I am the best designer. I'm certainly not the best designer around, and I'm not necessarily even the best designer on our team right now. And so I knew that floral design was, even though it's sort of like the core of what we do, I knew that it was something that the people who came to work for us were very passionate about and very good at and picked up quickly. Like, we have a lot of MICA grads on staff. We have a lot of flower farmers, former flower farmers and current flower farmers on staff. So I knew that the floral design piece, while I still wanted my hand in it, and certainly on, on wedding work and bigger events like that, I wanted to have my hands on it still. But that was something that was a little bit easier for me to train and have good staff to do. Yeah. The sort of buying from the farmers, that was always the piece that was really special to me about our business. And it's also, it's certainly teachable, but it's a little more complicated, just the purchasing, because it's not like purchasing, on Amazon where you're like, okay, I need some picnic tables. So I need them in June, but I can order them in December. Like you can just order and, plan ahead.
Right.
With local flowers, you're really waiting for the week of the event for the farmer to tell you what's available that week, because everything is locally sourced. Everything is seasonal. And so a lot of that is sort of, it's a fast moving thing. So, you're a week out from a giant wedding. We just this past weekend did the biggest wedding we had ever done.
Oh, wow.
And, we're a week out and we have ordered 0 flowers. And so for like a staff member, I don't know, there's a lot of pressure in that, and that I'm comfortable with that. I am also, in the end responsible for it. So that piece was an easy piece for me to keep. And I also love working with the farmers. Like that is like one of the things that I really enjoy and really love. Same with teaching. And we have had some of our designers teach classes when they are interested in it. That's something that I am passionate about, but we always leave it open for them if they are interested in a topic or, something that they want to teach on. We always leave that open to them. And a lot of the administrative stuff, that was a little bit easier for me to hand off. My husband, when he joined the business, was not going to be involved in the flower side. Like he doesn't design flowers. So that was an easy fit for him. He's a computer programmer. Like it just made sense that sort of fit for him. So I don't know. I think we work off everybody's strengths. And we're flexible enough that if you are passionate about something, we try to make that work. Our team has been with us for many years. So I think, we try to offer them as many opportunities for interesting work and growth and challenge and creativity that we can give them. So I think that's how it shakes out, sort of looking at people's passions and skills and sort of shaking it out from there.
Growing like flowers, to
exactly
throw that pun out there a little bit.
There are a lot of flower puns. Don't get me. There are a lot of flower puns.
And I think you keyed in on a very important concept there, because this is this doing this podcast is a version of that solo entrepreneur thing. And
totally,
when you're working with other people, I've had these conversations all the time. I was like, hire a writer or hire someone to book guests, and I was like, it comes from me. So it's like, what portions of it can I delegate? And getting to that spot where I need to be more comfortable, where, I have an editor. So I'll like say, all right, this will save me some time. And I can actually schedule and do all of these things and know like who I'm looking for, what type of conversation, and you want it to be authentic. But the other thing that I gathered is you can't teach passion. You can't teach passion.
Never.
So if someone is passionate about something,
we are 100% on the same page with that, because we are always saying to people, we don't care if you don't know how to design flowers. We can teach you that. That is a skill that we can teach you. We cannot teach you to care about our farmers, the environment, local flowers, our customers. We can't teach you that. You have to come to us with that passion, and then we can teach you the rest. 100%. We're on the same page about that.
That's a big thing. It's like, this is the prerequisite for you to get into this 101 floral class.
Yes, totally. Totally. Yeah. Because the thing is, because our model is so unique, and that most people who do have floral design experience are coming from shops where they source flowers from all over the world, from a wholesaler. And our product is different. Our technique is different. The things we care about are different. The techniques that we use in the shop to sort of protect the land and protect the environment, composting, not using plastic sleeves, not using floral foam, we do things differently. And we can't sort of make you care about that. Like, I feel like you have to come in with some passion for that, and then we can teach you sort of the techniques.
Yeah. And that's the type of conversations I'm really interested in. Like, when I talk with like entrepreneurs, like, if I'm keeping it very local, there are some entrepreneurs that have expanded, and it's like, yeah, I have a footprint everywhere, but getting to like the crux of when I talk to chefs is always interesting, because they'll say like, you're not getting in here to make a lot of money. You're getting in here, like, our margins are pretty thin, but you're getting in here because you're passionate about putting your feelings, your emotions, and all of that on a plate. And I think that that's transferable to whatever your business is. If you're in it, being it for that reason, and the money and all of that stuff will come and go or whatever, but being able to do it, that's the thing that gets you up in the morning. Because eventually money, or whatever the thing is, you're going to be so satisfied that you don't care, but what's going to keep you coming? It's that curiosity of, how can I design like this flower setup here, or what's really happening here with the farmers? How can we get down to that?
Totally. That is totally what drives us. I mean, like restaurants, there are very slim margins in floral design, at least the kind of floral design we do. We are not, by any means, in the luxury florist sort of realm where maybe the margins are bigger. We're a small Baltimore business in Waverly, and we, have small margins. But what keeps us going is, working with the farmers, supplying our customers with like an amazing local product, and having a really creative team that has a lot of fun together. Like, to be honest, like, our work is really fun.
Fun is one of those other, it's an elective, but it's not quite a prerequisite, but it's an elective, I think.
Yeah, totally. There. Yeah. Totally.
So now let's step back even further, right? Describe your earliest memory with either floral or horticulture. I don't know if that's all inclusive, but within that industry, or working with flowers and things of that nature. Describe one of those earliest memories.
I am not a person who came to flowers because of a long history or love of flowers. Okay. So I grew up in Buffalo, New York. Very much like Baltimore, sort of a working class city. My dad worked at the steel plant. We didn't garden. My first memory of flowers is that my grandmother, who lived on our same street, had some tulips in the front of her house that I remember came up every year. And I thought that was cool as a little kid, because we would sort of wait for the tulips. She also, in her yard, had lilacs, which I also now always associate. We talk a lot about in flowers sort of scent memory and what scent reminds us of and what it brings up for us. And certainly the scent of lilac brings me back to being a kid in my grandmother's backyard. Yeah. But, besides those memories, I had no connection to sort of flowers or nature in that way. Like I said, I grew up in a city. When I graduated from college in Buffalo, I moved to San Francisco. I lived in a tiny apartment in a very dense city. Again, no real connection with nature or certainly not growing things. Sure. It wasn't really until I moved to Baltimore in 1999 that my husband and I bought a row house in Butcher's Hill. That was our first home. And as a wedding gift, my husband's great aunt gave us a bag of tulip bulbs. And I didn't really know what to do with them. The directions said, put them in the ground in the fall and they'll bloom in the spring. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And, sure enough, they came up in the spring. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm a gardener now. Like, I think I am like like, I think I want to learn more about gardening. And literally, we had a row house backyard. It was a postage stamp size yard. But I was like, I think I might like gardening. I'd never done it before. I literally don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But I want to learn more. And so I took the master gardening class at the University of Maryland, which is for our Baltimore City Master Gardeners is out of Silburn. So I took my master gardening classes at Silburn. And that class is a 40-hour sort of in-class training and then 40 hours of hands-on training. So I got 80 hours of gardening training. I also started working part-time at a vegetable farm in Baltimore County, really just for fun, because I really was starting to be into it. My background is in affordable housing development. So I worked my day job in affordable housing development and worked at night and on weekends at this farm. And then, I was like meeting farmers, working at the farmers markets. And I was just like, you know what? This is a lot more fun than the work I'm doing. Like, how can I figure out a way to do this as work? Like, how can I, and I never thought about like taking a job at a floral shop. That never even occurred to me. I was in graduate school at Loyola getting my MBA, and I took a entrepreneurship class, and I had never really even considered having a business. Like, that never crossed my mind. Growing up, I didn't know people who had businesses. I didn't have any like examples of somebody, like people we knew in Buffalo. Like I said, you worked at the steel plant, or you were a firefighter or a police officer, or teacher. And it wasn't until I took this class at Loyola that I was like, wait a minute, I can like positively impact my community, which is always what I was trying to do in my community development and affordable housing development work. Mm-hmm. But I can do it sort of on my own terms, maybe with this hobby that I've gotten really passionate about. Yeah. And so all these things sort of kind of were happening at the same time. And so I really came to the business not from sort of a deep flower background, but more, excuse me, an interest in community development, a sort of new passion for gardening, and an interest in maybe, trying my own thing, if you will.
So you weren't rooted in flowers. I'm going to keep coming with the puns. That's what I do.
I was not rooted in flowers. You're right. But flowers are the one thing about flowers that I think, it may be true of a lot of businesses or a lot of hobbies. I started gardening when I was 28 or 29 years old. And I started the business, I don't know, I was 35 when I started it, 36. I'm going to be 49 this year. So I feel like it's like one of those things that I didn't feel like it was too late, like to learn a totally different thing. Like, I felt like flowers were a thing that you could learn at any time, and not just learn, but like become like really proficient and really passionate about at any age. So I don't know. I feel like flowers are such a good medium in that way for art and for business.
Totally. There are different artists that, whether it be photography, like we have Sean Champion here that did this, this series and it involved flowers, or you have painters that will involve flowers. It's beauty in that, and just the notion of you're developing something, you're growing something that looks in one form, and then later it develops into a different, vaster, more colorful form. It's really interesting. Yeah,
totally.
So let's see. I got some weird ones here.
Okay, I'm up for weird.
So this is more like inside baseball. So flowers. What flower is always in fashion, and what is a flower that is kind of under the radar that you're like, you know what, this needs a little bit more love? Yeah,
that's a good question. So one thing I'll say is, because we are using local flowers, they, just like if you go to the farmer's market, right? Mm-hmm. If you go to the farmer's market in May, there is going to be asparagus. And then in June, the asparagus is gone and now there's peas. And now, in July, we're getting into really hot season. The peas are done and we're starting to get into broccolis and cabbages and, other things. So you never get tired of eating asparagus because it's only available a couple weeks a year. And then you move on to the next thing. And that's how local flowers are too. So when we start the year, our first big crop is tulips. And tulips, I think, do get a little bit of a bad rap because people think tulips are a little bit boring. They're sort of ubiquitous. You see them at the grocery store, but our farmers are growing like super fancy tulips, like doubles and fringed and parrots, like really tulips you would never see at a regular store. And so I feel like tulips are a little under the radar in that way.
Sure.
Then next is ranunculus. And in the normal world of non-local flowers, ranunculus, is hot and people love ranunculus. And locally, every grower grows ranunculus because it is a fan favorite. People love it. And there are not too many flowers I would say this about because I am passionate about sort of seasonal and local flowers. But if there was one flower that I wish was available all year round, it's definitely ranunculus. So we have ranunculus locally February to Mother's Day. Okay. So it's a 4-month window or so. And I'm always sad when they're gone, but it really comes right on the heels of peonies. So peonies, start Mother's Day, and then they're available for a month. And peonies really are everybody's favorite flower. Like there are people who don't care anything about flowers, who don't know the names of any flowers, who don't know anything, but they love peonies. They are obsessed with peonies. And I like peonies, but I am not like the normal sort of everyday person who's obsessed. I love them, but I'm fine with them being available a month and moving on to something else. So after peonies, our next big crop, our big focal flower crop is dahlias. And dahlias are another favorite that people love. And the one thing about dahlias that I'll say is that traditional flower shops or conventional flower shops that source their flowers from overseas don't usually use dahlias because they don't ship well. And so even if, a grower in Holland or Kenya can grow a fabulous dahlia, they don't ship well because they're shipped out of water. Some flowers ship better than others. Dahlias really don't ship well. And so dahlia season locally is really a big celebration because everybody is looking to get dahlias. Everybody wants dahlias. And so from probably mid-July right through the frost, we have dahlias and they are just fabulous. And I feel like for us as folks sourcing locally, we have a little bit of a leg up because the traditional florists don't necessarily have them. And then when we get into Thanksgiving, we've got heirloom mums, which are like fancy mums. And again, mums are something that people are like, oh, mums, they're at Costco, they're so boring or they're dyed blue or, something like that. But heirloom mums are different. They come in beautiful colors and beautiful shapes, and they're great for fall weddings. And then it gets us right back to tulips again. So that's the cycle. Those are the main, there's hundreds every week. There's hundreds of varieties of flowers available locally. It's just that those are the hot, big focal flowers that sort of are available locally during the year.
Yeah, that's the hot 100 as it were.
Exactly, totally.
So definitely. What's the first one that ranunculus? That's the one.
Oh yeah, ranunculus.
That's a gorgeous flower. As you were describing it, I'm just looking at pictures. And I was like, all right, now it's almost like you're going to be obsessed with ranunculus too now. It's like when I dove into wine, I knew nothing. And I was like, I'll take this rosé that has these grapes that were used. It's like, how do you know this? It's like, I'm talking to people like Ellen Frost that knows these different things. I had class. That's the thing. I think that and that's partly, this is sort of a side note, but that's one of the things that we're most passionate about. And I think that we love most about our work is being able to share stories with our customers about
the flowers, about the farmers, about how the flowers are grown and where they're grown, so that people can be, like as excited as we are. Like our customers who knew nothing, about local flowers when they first started coming to us are now like, oh, is it tuberose time yet? Because I know it's only available 1 week a year. So is it time for the tuberose? Like we've got them trained to be excited about the things we're excited about. So it's great. It's a great opportunity to share sort of the stories of local flowers with people who are interested.
Yeah, I mean, you're selling a ticket in terms of just being aware, having that calendar, if you will, because my relationship with flowers has always been buying it for some woman in my life, whether it be my mom, my partner, and it's still in my refrigerator. My partner, because I was on this rant, and I was like, guys like flowers too, and she had flowers sent to my job. And I was like, all right, cool. These only roses though. Where's my chrysanthemums or whatever? I was, Guys
do like flowers. Guys definitely do like flowers. I'm a big proponent of sending guys flowers for sure.
So share a piece of advice. Again, there's another pun. It's a pun alert, trigger warning, all of that. Share a piece of advice that didn't seem important at the time, but later bloomed into something very helpful.
I think that one piece of business advice that I got very early on, which I don't think I fully, because I'm old. And when I started this business, there was not the type of social media presence there is now. There were blogs and Facebook was starting, but there was certainly not the presence that there is today among businesses. And because we're in a visual business, flowers on Instagram it's a lot. It's a lot. And very early on, one of the flower farmers who I know said to me something to the effect of like, don't worry about your competitors, whoever you think your competitors are, do you. Like, do the best you can do, keep your head down, don't worry, don't spend any energy or any time comparing yourself. What are they doing? Are they going to get the client that I'm trying to get? Do the best you can and do your thing, even if it's a little bit different than everybody else. And you're going to find your people, you're not going to have to. And in the beginning, I was like, I don't know. That sounds sort of an idealized picture of what really business is like. I'm like, because I had never been in business. I was like, I'm thinking about like looking at competitors' websites, looking at what they're offering, how much are they charging, and when she told me that, I was like, okay, well, let me like think about that for a little bit. And it wasn't until we sort of became more comfortable in our own skin and comfortable with what we were offering, that I could really appreciate that advice, because especially in flowers, and I would say especially on social media, there is a lot of comparison. There is a lot of, what are they doing? I saw that they're using this mechanic, there's just a lot of that. And for us, that advice has stayed true, and it has really helped us stay focused on our own work and, certainly keep abreast, I guess, of what people are doing, but not feel afraid, not feel threatened, not feel, like we're in competition, like we're all just doing our own thing, and it happens to be in flowers. And, so I think for me, that was like something that in the beginning I didn't quite understand fully, but has really helped keep us grounded and keep us focused, sort of eye on the prize of our own prize.
Totally. That's kind of one of those things I got from listening to this metaphysics course a while back. And as you remember, the guy that was kind of transposing, the teacher that was transposing this text, because it's very wordy and it's very vague sometimes. It was just like, when you receive the message, he's like, you might have to listen to this same thing over and over again, but when you receive the message, it's going to be something that you might not use it right now, but you will use it. Right. It's going to hit you. And I think that's why I like that question so much, because you don't think about it. And
Yeah.
I got started in podcasting a year after you got started. And,
Mm-hmm.
this is a very trends oriented thing. And
Yeah.
I see things that I know are not true. And, people will
Mm-hmm.
come to you and say like otherwise because they heard it in a book or the approved manual or whatever. I'll put it this way, that, your people will say you should not do a podcast that's longer than 20 minutes. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Joe Budden, Joe Rogan. I was like, all of these people do daily podcasts, 3 hours long. And I was just like,
right.
So how are they getting these big bucks? And you're telling all of these people to do these small things. It's trend oriented, and you have to stay in your lane. You have to stay authentic to what your mission is and what your goal is. And that'll get you through, because all of this other stuff is a storm of noise.
Yeah. And there's people, I think there's people out there for everybody. Our people who come to us for flowers are not, the same people that go to FTD flowers. There's people for FTD and there's people for us. And, I just didn't feel ever like we had to try to get those people away from it, somebody else, that we could just find our own people and be good with that.
So I have one last question here before we get into shameless plugs. We always like to do the shameless plugs.
Yeah. Great.
So, and maybe you think this, maybe you don't, but some people have this notion of intimidation around buying and owning flowers. Why do you think that's the case?
Oh, you know what? We have such a different flower culture in the United States than other countries do. So some places like England or England for sure, Holland, because what has happened sort of over the history, it's funny because I teach a history of floristry class. So I'm like, over 250 years, we have sort of been made to think that flowers are only for special occasions, that they are not everyday purchases, not everyday things. And also we've come to believe, partially because we're buying flowers that are, shipped from across the world, that flowers don't last very long. So they're not a good value. Yeah. And so I think those two competing things, we've got on one hand where you're like, oh, it's Mother's Day, I'll buy something for my mother or for my wife or for my daughter, for Mother's Day. But I wouldn't just do that on a Wednesday. I wouldn't do it just for whatever. And also you think like, well, I don't really want to spend $20, $30, this week, because these flowers are only going to last a day or two. And so I think there is, and that's one of the reasons why at our shop, we, both for weddings, for single orders, and for our retail, we never have any minimums. Like most florists have a minimum for weddings, or when we're open for retail, you can come in and buy one stem. Like you don't have to buy a $40 bouquet. You can buy one $2 stem, because we always want to make and keep local flowers accessible to people, and to try to help people think of flowers as an everyday or every week kind of thing. And we don't have that culture here. And we definitely try to instill that in folks, because flowers, they don't have to be expensive. You can buy, 3 or 4 stems and put them in a bud vase and have them for a week, and it costs $10. Yeah. And the joy that those flowers are going to give you, it's worth $10. That's like what, 2 Starbucks coffees? Like you're going to get a lot more joy, I'm telling you, out of that flower vase than you are out of those 2 Starbucks coffees.
I agree.
Yeah. So I think that's partly why.
I agree. That's great. And that gives me some insight on that. And hopefully the fine folks listening to this learn something and
that's right.
All that good stuff. So if you will, shameless plug time. Let's social media, website, all of that good stuff.
Awesome. Okay. So you can find us on Instagram at Local Color Flowers. You can find our website at locoflow.com. That's LOCOFLO.com. Those are probably the 2 main places to find us. You can find us on Facebook too, under Local Color Flowers. And I will say, this is just a timely plug. Our shop has been closed for walk-in business, for retail business since COVID. And we've been doing other things, deliveries and small weddings and other things, but all of that has been contactless. And our shop is going to reopen this Saturday, July 3rd, from 8 to 12. And so we'll be open Saturdays from 8 to 12 going forward. And we're really excited to be open again and see people and, again, share the stories of local flowers with folks. So yeah, we're real excited about that.
Well, that's wonderful. And thank you. And congratulations on this point of coming back to being reopened. So that's great.
Thank you so much.
So that's all I have. I'll do my sign off. And this has been great.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks so much.
So for Ellen Frost from Local Color Flowers, I am Rob Lee, saying that there's art, business, flowers, all that good stuff. Things that you should just look into, buy, beautify your home, your neighborhood with some flowers in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.